Hey friends, it's Tomer, and we just got the official preview of the Duskmourn Commander precon Jump Scare. This is a new Simic deck focused on two main themes, landfall and face down permanents, and it has a sub-theme focusing on +1/+1 counters. So in this video, we're going to be checking out all the cards in the precon, starting with the brand new cards that are exclusive to the deck, and then we check out the reprints. But before we begin, 3 quick reminders. First, you can check out all the Duskmourn previews as they are being released at mtgpreviews.com. You can pre-order these cards over at our sponsor, cardkingdom.com/mtggoldfish. And finally, if you like these sort of videos, you can always like and subscribe to never miss a video. Alright, we begin with the face commander. This is Zimone, Mystery Unraveler. This is a 4-mana Simic 3/3 legendary creature human wizard. It has landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, manifest dread if it is the first time this ability has resolved this turn. Otherwise, you may turn a permanent you control face up. So manifest dread is a new Duskmourn mechanic. It's a new twist on the manifest mechanic. To manifest dread, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put one onto the battlefield face down as a 2/2 creature, and the other into your graveyard. Turn it face up at any time for its mana cost if it's a creature card. So this is just a power crept version of the manifest mechanic. Instead of just manifesting the top card of your library, you get to look at the top 2 cards of your library, manifest one of those, and put the other one in the graveyard. So it's manifesting with some card selection and some graveyard matters. So Zimone kind of tells you what the main focus of the deck is. It's all about manifesting and all about landfall, which are the 2 main themes of the deck. The most notable cards that you're going to be doing with a Zimone deck, 2 of which are actually printed in the precon, are stuff like Eudora Grave Gardener and Ashaya Soul of the Wild. Both of these allow your creatures to become lanes to then trigger more landfall triggers. Eudora does this when your creatures are dying, they come back as forests, and Ashaya just says all your creatures are forests at any given time, so when they enter the battlefield, they also trigger landfall triggers like Zimone. Some things you can do to power up Zimone outside of the precon is you can add an easy combo of Alter Dementia. That with Zimone, with Eudora, and then any creature that you manifest with Zimone, you put it face down, and then you flip it face up, is an infinite mill combo, and infinite landfall trigger combo, I think, too. So that's an easy upgrade to the deck, and you already have Eudora, you already have Zimone, you already have Ashaya already in the precon, so Alter Dimension is easy upgrade potential here. But even if you're not interested in combos or anything, Zimone is a very powerful commander. It's a really cool twist on landfall. It's not just straight up landfall deck, although there are a lot of landfall staples that you're going to be finding in the precon and work as upgrades too. It's also half landfall, half manifest, half face down matters, and that's a really cool twist to a very popular and very, very well explored archetype. And by the way, there's going to be a lot of face down support cards in this deck. And instead of just saying over and over again that they fit very well in other morph/manifest decks, I'm just going to say it here. So basically anything that cares about face down or morphing or manifesting in the Zimone deck is obviously going to be a really great upgrade for any Kadena players out there. So Kadena players rejoice. Basically anything that's good in the Zimone deck that is focused on manifesting or face down matters is going to be a slam dunk in your deck too, so you're going to get a bunch of upgrades. Similarly, cost is also face down matters. It's Naya, so it's only overlapping with the green side of the new Zimone cards as opposed to both the green and blue cards. So there's less cards you're going to be getting, but you're still going to be getting some upgrades here too. So I'm just getting that out of the way over here. Anything that cares about face down matters or manifesting or putting stuff down face down is going to be really good in the Zimone deck, obviously, but it's also going to be good in any other deck that cares about face down, which the most popular options are Kadena and cost. All right, the secondary commander is Kianne Corrupted Memory, and unlike Zimone, which cares about landfall and manifest, this does not care about those things. It actually cares about drawing cards, casting stuff with flash, and putting +1/+1 counters on stuff. So this is a 4-mana Simic 2/2 legendary creature illusion. As long as Kianne's power is even, you may cast non-creature spells as though they had flash, and as long as its power is on, you may cast creature spells as though they had flash. And whenever you draw a card, you put a +1/+1 counter on Kianne. So this creature gets very, very large very quickly. The more cards you draw, the bigger of a threat it becomes. but it also allows you to cast stuff at instant speed. But there's a restriction to it. It's never going to give you all your cards flash. It either gives your non-creature spells flash or your creature spells flash at any given time, depending on its power, which immediately grows itself as long as you're drawing cards. So Kianne works very differently from Zimone, which is the face commander, and probably wants to be its own deck as opposed to just being swapped into the command zone of this precon. You want to be focusing on card draw matters because she is a payoff for drawing cards. So not only do you want instant speed ways of drawing cards, but you also want more payoffs like Wizard class, for example. The final level 3, allows you to add even more counters to your creatures. Things like Hardened Scales works really well with Kianne because you're getting 1+1+1 counter at a time. So this is effectively just doubles the amount of counters you're getting. And then because Kianne gets really big, you can actually go for a Voltron strategy, give her unblockable, and then you can start one-shotting, maybe two-shotting your opponents later on in the game with stuff like Aqueous Form. You're definitely going for a draw ghost style of Kianne too because the flash ability is so powerful. But yeah, there's a lot of moving parts of Kianne, making her a much more open-ended commander compared to the face commander. You can go for +1/+1 counters matters, you can go for draw goes matters, you could go for drawing cards matters, mix and match them together, and Kianne will always be a nice little payoff in the command zone for all those strategies, and then also be a finisher because she grows and grows and eventually can start one-shotting or two-shotting your opponents. Okay, the next new card in the deck is Glitch Interpreter. This is a 3-mana blue human wizard. It's a 2/3, and when it enters, if you control no face-down permanents, return Glitch Interpreter to its owner's hand and manifest Dread. And whenever one or more colorless creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. So this is a slam dunk for any face down matters deck like this one. It's a 3-mana coastal piracy effect for your face down creatures. Obviously, your face down creatures are all like 2/2s, and they don't have any built-in evasion. So you do have to work for it a little bit more. You have to find ways of granting evasion to all your creatures. I immediately think of like Wonder, for example, as a great upgrade for this particular deck because Manifest Dread allows you to have another way of putting Wonder directly into the graveyard from the top of your library. So that might work really well with Glitch Interpreter and what it's trying to do. It's also kind of cute in a colorless matters deck outside of the face down archetype. I think there's like Ulalek or something. One of the new Eldrazi's is like 5-color colorless matters. This could actually be a cool coastal piracy effect for those type of decks too. Next we have Giggling Skitterspike. This is a 4-mana colorless artifact creature toy. It's a 1/1 indestructible, and whenever it attacks, blocks, or becomes the target of a spell, it deals damage equal to its power to each opponent. And it has pay 5 mana, monstrosity 5. If this creature isn't monsters, you put 5+1/+1 counters on it and it becomes monstrous. So this is kind of like a stuffy doll variant, although it works very differently. This is a creature that you want to grow because the larger it is, the more damage it's going to be doing to your opponents, and it does it to each opponent too. So the amount of damage you can be doing is very high, but you do want to grow the Skitterspike in order to make it a lethal threat. The fact that it's indestructible and triggers on attack, block, and also targeting makes it a very scary threat in a lot of different decks. Monstrosity 5 also makes it like a 6/6 very quickly once you've spent that additional 5 mana. But other things you can do is you can just throw this into basically any +1/+1 counter deck where you can find numerous ways of growing it into that huge threat. So something like Increasing Savagery is going to be fantastic on it because not only does it grow it, but it also targets the Skitterspike. So you also trigger its damage ability too. So you can like Savagery it, put 5 counters onto it, and then maybe flash back and then deal even more damage and also grow it again too. Yeah, Skitterspike, really powerful finisher, and it's going to be most notable in a +1/+1 counter deck, I think. Next we have Curator Beastie. This is a 6-mana green creature beast. It's a 6/6 with reach, and colorless creatures you control enter with 2 +1/+1 counters on them, and whenever it enters or attacks, manifest Dread. So this is kind of a Titan for your colorless creature deck /your face down deck. ETB and attacks and Manifest Dread, so it puts your colorless creatures onto the battlefield, and then they also enter with +1/+1 counters on them. So whenever it enters or attacks, you're essentially card selecting and putting 4/4s onto the battlefield that have counters on them. This card's just really good. Obviously, if you're in a face down deck, this is one of the best top ends you could hope for. It's a huge beater that makes huge beaters. Next, we've got Shriekwood Devourer. It's a 7 mana green creature tree folk. It's a 7/5 trampler. And whenever you attack with one or more creatures, untap up to X lands, where X is the greatest power among those creatures. Now, this is an interesting one. Because this kind of rewards go tall strategies. Obviously, if you just attack with the tree folk by itself, you get to untap 7 lands. So it already kind of fuels its own super powerful ramp option. But it doesn't really work too well with like face down creatures, because those are always defaulting as 2/2s. You kind of want to grow them, and that's where like the +1/+1 counter sub theme kind of works its way into this card. But outside of that, I think you could just jam this into any like go tall deck and get an extra Bear Umbra / Sword of Feast and Famine / untap all your lands type effect really efficiently. So Shriekwood Devourer is good in this deck if you have enough +1/+1 counters. Obviously, if you just like throw a Lightning Greaves onto it and attack, you get to untap all your lands immediately, basically, or 7 of them immediately. So that's very good. But you could also just jam this into other go tall decks like Galta, for example, Xenagos, for example, and it's going to work really well in both those style decks too. Next, we have Disorienting Choice. This is a 4 mana green sorcery that says for each opponent, choose up to 1 target artifact or enchantment that player controls. For each permanent chosen this way, its controller may exile it. Then, if one or more of the chosen permanents are still on the battlefield, you may search your library for that many land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. So Disorienting Choice is a very powerful but context-dependent card. It's somewhere between a Druid of Purification or Attempt of Discovery, or even like a Peer's Whim, for example. It's a disenchant and a very powerful ramp tutor effect, but you don't get to really choose if your opponents are going to let you disenchant something or if they're going to allow you to ramp you. So it does get a little bit weaker because your opponents have a say in how powerful this card is ending up to be. But even with your opponents getting to choose, there's 2 bad options for them available, and you're always going to come up ahead for this 4 mana spell. Each opponent gets to decide if you're going to exile their best artifact or enchantment on the battlefield, and if they say yes, then boom, the problematic, scary thing is gone. But if they say no, I want to keep my scary thing, then you still get to land ramp instead. And at this point, we all know how powerful tutoring up any non-basic land in your deck can be. Cough, cough. Field of the Dead, for example. The downside here, though, is sometimes your opponent won't have like an artifact or enchantment on the battlefield, or it's like something that you don't actually care about. Like, let's say your opponent just has like an Arcane Signet on the battlefield, and you choose that. You don't actually want to remove the Arcane Signet. It's not a threat to you, but it's the only thing available. So your opponent probably will just say, yeah, sure, you can take my Arcane Signet, I don't care. And then you don't really have a good outcome there. And that's like the worst case scenario with this Disorienting Choice. But the best case scenario is that all 3 of your opponents have something they actually want to hold on to, an artifact or enchantment they want to hold on to. You get to choose that one, and then either they lose their best artifact or enchantment, exiled even, so they can't even recur it, or you're just given free reign to get your Field of the Dead, your Vesuvas, your Dark Depths, or whatever, and just pop off even harder. So yeah, this card is good, but its power really lies in how powerful the non-basic lands you are actually running. If you're running like a budget deck and most of your lands are like basic lands or just like very cheap mana fixing lands, then this card is kind of not very good, honestly. But if you're running like Field of the Deads, if you're running Glacial Chasms, if you're running the best of the best non-basic lands in the deck, then I think this is a slam dunk, because worst case is you exile stuff from your opponents that they don't want exiled very mana efficiently, and best case, your opponents say no, you get to land ramp your most powerful cracked lands in your deck, and then you win, basically. So yeah, this card is really good, but it's only good if you have a very expensive mana base, essentially. Okay, we got a new blue board wipe with Zimone's Hypothesis. This is a 5 mana blue instant that says you may put a +1/+1 counter on a creature, then choose odd or even, return each creature with the power of the chosen quality to its owner's hand. So this is a instant speed board wipe that can be kind of asymmetrical if you compare it to something like Evacuation, which is like fully symmetrical, return all creatures to their owner's hands. This is same mana cost, also instant speed, similar effect, but Zimone's Hypothesis kind of just allows you to sometimes save more of your board than your opponents get to do, but it's never always going to be like a very clean asymmetrical wipe, right? You can make sure that you're going to save a lot of your own creatures. The +1/+1 counter allows you to save one more creature or bounce one more creature of your opponent, so you put the counter on your opponent's creature. But you're not always going to get a clean sweep. It's sometimes going to look amazing and it's going to be a one-sided wipe for you, and then sometimes it's going to be a little bit clunky, where you get to save your most important creature, maybe bounce your opponent's most important creatures too. They'll get some stuff left over. I think it's better than Evacuation. I think it's way better than Evacuation. I haven't played Evacuation in I don't know how many years. Is this like the best blue board wipe? I don't think so. But being instant speed is one of the best instant speed blue board wipes. I think yes. It's an interesting card. I'm definitely going to be playing it a little bit. But it is a weird one. I don't know how consistently good it's going to be. Next we have They Came from the Pipes. Ooh, spooky. This is a 5 mana blue enchantment that says when it enters, manifest Dread twice, and whenever a face down creature you control enters, draw a card. So when this ETBs for 5 mana, you get to manifest Dread twice, and then you get to draw 2 cards immediately because 2 creatures just enter the battlefield. So that's already pretty decent by itself, honestly. It gets even better if you have like any ways of blinking this enchantment. And then just later on afterwards, anytime you keep playing more face down creatures, you get to draw more cards. So it's a good card draw engine. It puts 2 bodies on the battlefield. You draw 2 cards immediately off them. Yeah, this is a slam dunk in any face down deck. Next, we've got a new subtype in Duskmourn. It's an enchantment subtype called Room. Rooms are basically, you cast one side of this card and you get that side's ability. So you can either cast Experimental Lab for 4 mana or Staff Room for 3 mana. And then you get that effect on the battlefield. And then at sorcery speed, at any time, you could spend the mana of the other room, the other side of the card, to unlock it. And then you get that side's ability too. And then you get both sides of the card working at the same time on the battlefield. So one side is Experimental Lab. One room is Experimental Lab. It's a 4 mana green enchantment that says when you unlock this door, manifest Dread, then put the top +1/+1 counters and trample counter on that creature. I do have to read the card sideways. It's very awkward for me. And then the other one is Staff Room, which is 3 mana. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, turn that creature face up and put a +1/+1 counter on it. So this is nice, just support for the face down deck. Experimental Lab is probably where you want to start with this card because you get to manifest Dread and then you get a big creature, and then when you unlock or open Staff Room, you can like swing in with that creature and then flip it up and make it even bigger. So that's really cool. Both sides are really useful. Staff Room is a payoff for attacking and dealing damage with your face down creatures, and Experimental Lab just puts down some creatures, which is nice. Yeah, pretty straightforward, good in the face down deck. Okay, so those were all the brand new cards that are exclusive to the Jump Scare Precon, and now we're going to look at the rest of the deck, starting with the most expensive reprints, top 4 most expensive reprints, and by far the most exciting reprint for all you Simic Landfall lovers is AC Tyrant of Gyre Strait. This is one of the most powerful payoffs for Simic Landfall. It's an incredibly popular commander as well too, and it's only seen a single printing. It was printed as the top of a very budget-friendly precon some years ago, I believe, in Commander Legends. And it was like a $20 precon when it came out, the entire thing, believe it or not. It was like wild. And now the card itself was creeping up to double the price, the MSRP, back when MSRP was a thing, of the original precon that it led. It was $37, almost $38, never saw a reprint, was stuck in foil, which was like very badly curled and everything, I remember too, because it was Commander Legends. Yeah, so this is a great reprint, and finally you could see it in non-foil too, so it would be nice and flat for everybody. That's great. And then another card that I was kind of surprised is so expensive is a Shia Soul of the Wild. I guess it never saw a reprint either, but this is a staple again in basically any sort of landfall deck. Basically, all your non-token creatures entering will trigger more landfall. Like, what else can you want? And then they tap for green. Amazing. Then we got another big, after those, the price of the reprints are much, much lower. The only card that's over $4 is a Worldspine Worm, which is, the Timmy casual lover's favorite creature. It's a 15/15. What's not to love? And then there's a bunch of $4 cards like Hydra Omnivore, which works really well with +1/+1 counters, a sub-theme there. All right, now let's look at the rest of the reprints. And we're just going to be starting from creatures at the lowest mana value and then doing the same thing with the other categories. So the first one we've got is Overgrown Zealot. Works very well with the face down archetype, obviously. Sakura Tribe Elder is very good with landfall, just a good card in general. Shigeki is a great landfall card, but also a great just mana sink later on in the game when you have like infinite mana from all your landfalling and ramping. You can just channel this and then get a whole bunch of cards from your graveyard back to your hand. Augur of Autumn, really good. Lets you play lands from the top of your library, creature from the top of your library, so it's nice card advantage. Deathmist Raptor, face down matters, nice. Kef the Mindful is here. It's okay here, I guess. I don't know. Scoosworm, one of the best payoffs for landfall. Awesome to see. Scabruinator, it kind of works well with Manifest Dread because you could mill it into your graveyard, and you're going to be milling lots of cards into your graveyard with Manifest Dread, so that kind of works well here. Then we've got Trigon Predator, nice repeatable disenchant. Yavimaya Elder, I think this card is bad, but okay. Ricksmithy's Slumbering Isle, I love this card. It's really cool in landfall decks because you can, ramp it out, but then it becomes a 12/12 eventually, which is super fun. Then Sentinel Hierophants, I haven't seen this card in forever. Just all your creatures become mana dorks. Your face down 2/2s or whatever can now tap for green. We've got a morph card with Keru Spell Snatcher. Rashmi Eternity's Crafter works really well with our secondary commander. Really works well with like flash enablers. Body of Knowledge, we're going to be drawing lots of cards, so this is a nice payoff for that, I guess. Tatyova, a great payoff for Lanefall. Whisperwood Elemental is really good with Face Down Matters. Eudora is really good with Landfall. Greater Tanuki is cute, because it's like channel ramp, and that's cute. Multani, great in Landfall, great in Self-Mill. Timur War Shaman is really good with the Face Down Matters. Thunderfoot Battle is weird, but I guess this is like a weird anthem for all your 2/2s. You can make them 4/4 tramplers sometimes. Beanstalk Giant is ramp. Biomass Mutation is another finisher to turn all your 2/2s into something bigger. Also works really well with +1/+1 counters. Counterspell, Growth Spiral, Rampant Growth, Reality Shift, just your veggies of any deck. Beast Within, Cackling Counterpart. This is like, I guess Flashback is kind of cute with Manifest Dread because you can be milling them into the graveyard. Cultivate Eureka Moment, just really good staples. Explosive Vegetation, just, landfall triggering, ramping and stuff. Aethergale, a kind of bad pseudo wipe effects type thing. Oversimplify, another kind of bad board wipe in my opinion, but it's fine. It deals with +1/+1 counters, that's cool. Overwhelming Stampede, another overrun effect because your deck is mostly just like 2/2s or whatever, so you need a way to pump them up. Then we've got Dig Through Time. Again, we're trying to utilize all the cards we're milling with Manifest Dread, so this is a cute way of doing so. Azura's Predation, a one-sided board wipe for smaller creatures. I love this card personally. Then we got some staples, Sol Ring, Arcane Signet. By the way, these card versions are not going to be the same ones you're going to be seeing in the precon. Obviously, they're going to have the precon symbol on all of them as your expansion symbol, not whatever ones you see on the battlefield or on the screen rather. And also they might have different artworks too. So definitely you're not going to be seeing this version of Sol Ring or this version of Arcane Signet. You're probably going to see a different version artwork of those, and definitely a different expansion symbol for them. Then we got Simic Signet. Scroll of Fate is nice for face down matters. Growing Dread, really good for face down matters. Trail of Mystery, same thing. Retreat to Coral Helm is kind of cute. It's not very good, but it is a landfall payoff. Wilderness Reclamation works really well for secondary commander because flash mattering. You can cast more spells with this ability. Primordial Mist, also good for face down matters. Sandworm Convergence, I don't know, I guess they threw in a random top end. It's not very good thematically for the deck, but I guess whatever. And then the rest of the deck is just like lands, and I looked at the lands and none of them were very interesting. I actually spoke with some Commander precon designers and they mentioned that they kind of leave the lands to be kind of boring because they essentially have like a budget, like a monetary budget on the precons themselves, like how much they can spend on reprints and stuff. And they flat out said that like people find the lands the least interesting part of decks, so they don't spend much of their budget on the lands. They make sure that the new cards are exciting and they put in like exciting reprints, and that's where they put their budget into, and the lands are kind of like whatever. The mana base is fine. It's a 2-color deck, so you don't really have to work hard for it, but it's not exciting or anything, so I just skipped over it. So overall thoughts on the deck itself, I don't know how to say this in a nice. I don't really like it. I don't know how to say it in a nice way. I feel like it is definitely a Simic landfall deck that has a strong face down sub theme, but like trying to mix together landfall and face down matters, it doesn't really mix together, right? They made new cards to make it work. Obviously, the face commander is the biggest tie-in with these two mechanics. But like there's not a lot of reprints to make them work together. They just traditionally face down mattering, and landfall has not been typically a thing that goes well together, and it kind of shows with the rest of the deck. And then +1/+1 counters are just randomly here too, and it just doesn't work. I don't know. It feels weird. It feels like a mess, and yeah, I don't know. I'm not too super hyped about it. Maybe you are. I don't want to be a negative Nancy. I don't want to yuck everybody's yum, you know. That's not what I'm here for. I'm just trying to give my initial thoughts on it. It kind of feels disoriented. And that might have been intentional because landfall decks are traditionally like the best archetype you can play in casual commander, like it just is. So I think if they focused more on landfall, for example, and they like cut out the +1/+1 counter sub theme, I feel like there's a genuine risk that this deck just becomes too strong. And if you're the type of person who buys like all the stock precons and then plays them together, like all the Duskmourn precons, if you just made like a good landfall precon, it would just smash the rest of the table and it wouldn't be very interesting. So I think that's why they kind of like made face down matters and landfall and +1/+1 counters just to nerf it a little bit. But like, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like the overall result is just kind of a mess. I kind of wish they just focused more on face down matters and went all in on that. Went Simic face down matters. Maybe then it would be too close to the Kadena precon, but that was like 2017 or something at that point. I think they could just make another Simic face down matters deck. It would have been fine. Whatever. I don't know. This deck is fine. Let me know in the comment section. I'm being very mean and negative. I need a coffee, I guess. I don't know. I need a Snickers. Let me know in the comment section. What do you think about this deck? Anywho, I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe if you didn't already. I'm going to be covering the next precons as they come out, and hopefully those ones entertain me more. So let's see what the other ones have in store. So until then, friends, see ya.